Michael Lane. I'm the president of Flipsport Group. We've been doing space research for about 20 years now. We started on some pretty big projects. Usually I spend some time, I'm hearing a lot of feedback.
Is that better?
Yeah, let's give it a try. Okay. Hi, everybody. We've been doing space research for about 20 years now under the banner of Flipsport Group. We started out working on the space elevator, initially under the NASA umbrella, and then we became a company in 2003, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Over that time, we worked on nanotechnology and the mechanical processes of climbing string. It's pretty neat. Those were good days. We had a lot of fun with that. Then that version of the company closed in 2007, just as a kind of precursor of the economy kind of going south. Fast forward to 2017, we restarted the company to focus on a lunar elevator, which we are pretty comfortable in saying it can be built now with current technology. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. During the beginning days of the pandemic, we had to make some pretty big changes just to stay alive, just to stay active as a company. So we wound up pivoting to doing a lot of conferences, so technical conferences as a service. We did 27 of them. I'm pretty proud of my team for pulling that off. That was quite an accomplishment. Had more than 500 speakers, hundreds of hours of content on our YouTube channel. And then as the pandemic has changed, has shifted, we're still doing the same kinds of things, communicating with people, telling stories, talking about space. But in the last maybe 2 months, 3 months, we've shifted over to doing podcasts as a service. So you're going to start seeing more and more of our shows. We're going to go in and have one-on-one conversations with some of the brilliant people that we've had on our past conferences. And today's guest is kind of similar to that. That's how we met. For those folks that have been following us along, most of the guests up till now, I've known a year or 2 or 5 or 15 years. Doug is new to me. I met him at the Mars Society conference in Arizona, just at the end of October. Serendipitously, we both had a break and had a chance to go grab lunch at the same time, which wasn't easy for me to do. I was running around like a crazy person trying to manage the digital side of that. So Doug is new to me, Dr. Doug Plata. He is the executive director of Developed Space. It's a member-based organization. We're going to talk quite a bit about that. But before we get there, Doug, I wanted to point out we were within feet of each other back in 2015 at an ISGC event. I'm pretty sure it was ISGC. But the Moons and Back people had an interview with me and an interview with you at the same event, but I never met you then. So we were within, feet of each other at 1.7 years ago. So I know you've been around the field for a long time. So I think it actually was further back than that. The video got posted 7 years ago. I'll post a link to it in a moment. The videos got posted 7 years ago, but when I listened to my own interview, I think it's farther back, maybe even 8 or 9 years ago, when I actually did the interview. So it was pretty interesting. So we've been in the same circles for a long time. We just never actually had a chance to meet. So it was really great having lunch with you. Well, I want to start, the way we usually run these is the first 10 minutes or so, rather than me just reading a boring bio that people can find pretty easily on you. I really like it if people tell their own story. So tell your origin story. How did you get here? What's your role? What are you doing? But most importantly, in this part of the story, tell how you got tied here. How did you decide you were a spacer?
Okay, I appreciate it. Actually, I'm pretty sure that it was Space Access Societies where we had those interviews.
Okay, Space Access, that's very possible. Sure, yeah, that makes sense.
Am I getting some feedback here?
It's not too bad.
Okay, so my story starts in high school when I took physics, and it just absolutely clicked. And I knew that I was, I'm trying to turn the volume down here somehow.
I'm going to mute on my side while you're talking.
Okay. Yes, I think that's a lot better. So what happened was I went into college. I was always wanting, since third grade, I want to be a physician. But after taking physics, I'm like, man, I really enjoy physics. It explains the world, you know. I was the kid who was always asking, Daddy, why is this? Why is that? Because it is, And so I was trying to figure out what to do in college, and my cousin suggested, well, why not biophysics? That is sort of pre-med, and yet you get the physics in there. Like, wow, I didn't even know that existed. So I took biophysics, just ate it up, just thoroughly enjoyed the environment, the academia, everything. And then I went ahead and applied to medical school, got accepted, and started medicine. And medicine, I felt like I couldn't really express my physics side of me as much as I would like. But I wanted to be a physician, and so I pursued, residency in family and preventive medicine, and then went on to practice. I'm doing urgent care and occupational medicine. And then it was in 2009, there was a news report that I read that really captured my attention, and that was the L-Cross mission, in which NASA smashed a Centaur upper stage into a permanently shadowed crater at the south pole of the moon in hopes that they would find ice. And they found ice on the surface of the moon, which is very remarkable. And the moment I read that report, the next thought that came to me is, but you could electrolyze water ice into propellant. I mean, maybe you could create a Earth-Moon transport system using that water ice for propellant. But it was just a sort of a passing thought. And then I was in 2011, I think it was. I was looking at the astronomy picture of the day, and there were some pictures of the Apollo program. And Michael, I'm 55 years old. How old are you?
I'm also 55.
Okay, so do you remember the Apollo program?
Not a bit.
Not a bit, me either. We've gone our whole life, and all that we've seen is low Earth orbit. We haven't seen the Apollo program. We haven't seen Mars. We haven't seen a return to the moon yet.
They were, we were 2 years old. We were in diapers.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel cheated. Do you feel cheated? Yeah, exactly. So I was looking at the astronomy pictures of the day, and it must have been an anniversary of the Apollo program. And I was looking at those pictures, and I'm saying, man, I missed, one of the most amazing things that humanity has ever done. And I felt bummed out about it. And so what I did is I remembered about the ice on the moon. And so I Googled around, and I found a space forum called Permanent. And so I joined, and I was asking absolutely bonehead questions. But fundamentally, I'm asking, what about this idea of harvesting ice and using it to refuel a lander and turning it into a ferry? And the more I looked into it, the more I got convinced that actually this is doable. But there's a lot of technical challenges. And then I started listening to the space show, including consuming a whole lot of archives. And man, I mean, it was like a master's in space studies or something that I took just by listening to those archives. And I really owe a lot to the space show for the space advocate that I've become. And I began to realize that there's not just a transportation issue. There are human factors issues. There's policy issues. There's finance issues, and the whole nine yards. And as I listened, I sort of considered different options, and I sort of picked and said, okay, I think for radiation, I think this is the approach. I think for artificial gravity, this approach. For telerobotics, I think we could do this, et cetera. And I began developing a concept of a much broader aspect than just Earth-Moon transportation, but really development and space development. I feel like I honestly looked at asteroid mining and free space and settlements and Mars. And even though I started with the moon, I was open to other ideas. But I really came back and maybe, Michael, this is where I could share with the audience why I think lunar development and settlement is going to be the main thing in space for the next 50 years.
Sure, I do definitely want to get into that. But I want to hear a little bit more of your backstory, right? So one of the things that we're finding with our audience is they want to know, how did people get here, right? So you went through physics, that was interesting. You were more interested in medicine. How do you pull those two things together?
I don't actually. I mean, I've had people encourage me to, oh, you should go into aerospace medicine. And to me, that would be confining, because that would be typically dealing with astronauts now, which is low Earth orbit, and it would be limited. It wouldn't have to do with telerobotics, wouldn't deal with habitats, wouldn't deal with growing food, And I have broader interest than just medicine. And so as I think there's many of us like this, here I am at my office. I just got done 5 p.m. With my shift. And it pays the bills, and then I use my free time, like as much of my free time as I can, that my wife lets me, to advance space development. And so I developed this website, and it just kept growing as I got more details about different aspects of space development. So I developed the website developspace.info. It's extremely extensive, one of the most extensive space advocacy websites on the internet. It has 8 hours of reading material on all aspects of space development that's near or midterm. So I encourage the audience to go ahead and check it out and see what you think about the plan for sustainable space development as described there. It has evolved over time. My concepts have evolved significantly, but they've now settled down into a specific plan. And I am rather convinced that we are at a tipping point in human history. I think that we really, honestly, are about to expand beyond Earth. And I think that's going to be the moon, shortly thereafter Mars, and a fair amount later, free space.
I agree with that 100%. That's how that's going to unfold. We're going to spend a lot of time on the moon. The moon is going to be, I don't want to use the word gateway because that implies NASA, but it's going to be the jump-off point, the way St. Louis was the jump-off point before you started out to Wild Wild West, before Chicago was the jump-off point. It's going to be this necessary Seattle is the jump-off point before you got to Alaska, right? There are going to be waypoints along this great journey that we're on, and the moon is a pretty critical component. We might disagree on some of the details. I'm looking forward to getting into the details.
I sort of disagree. in that, first of all, we know good and well that SpaceX is pushing hard for Mars. Under normal circumstances, I think lunar development would happen first because, you know, it's closer, it's safer. But because of Elon and his company and the people in his company are very committed to Mars, here's why I think Mars is not going to be in the distant future. I think that I don't know if the moon is necessary to go Mars. It's certainly helpful, but you know, can you test out habitats on Earth and feel confident that they would work on Mars? I think that's maybe. How about ISRU? I think maybe. But here's why I think Mars is not going to be that far into the future. Space, and this is reality. This is ground truth right now. SpaceX has built 200 plus Starship Raptor 2 engines as of this podcast. If you make the ratio maybe 1-to-5 or 1-to-6 of super heavies with all those engines, and then starships with 1/5 of those engines, the ratio comes to maybe about 33 starships. Engines enough for 33 starships, and then about 3 super heavies. And you can use super heavies a lot more frequently than starships that go into orbit. That is a fleet. We never had 33 shuttles. We never had 33 Saturn V's. This is a totally new thing. And this is sort of my point, and that is a fundamental point of why I think it totally changes finances and totally changes space policy. We have to think about it not by looking back at historical analogies, not look at it as to what the government is doing, but look at it through the lens of Starship. And when you have 100 tons being delivered to the moon and Mars, or 100 people per starship, and then you have a fleet, and they are producing Raptor 2 engines, about 1 engine per day, and that's like a starship per week. I'm sorry, is it one per day or 1 per week?
I think they're up to 1 a week.
But to get to 200, they have to be producing more than 1 a week, because that takes 4 years. So at any rate, and their rate of production is increasing. So in 2024,
for launch turnaround is amazing, right? They got 3 launches in less than 36 hours this last week. I mean, different places and different requirements, but
right?
Still, the throughput is bonkers. I'm working on a paper around the Starship Singularity, and I've talked about that a while ago. But okay, I'm not trying to get into the politics of it, and I'm not trying to get into hero worship. People who know me know that I've met him 3 times, and while I am very impressed by the organization that Shotwell runs at SpaceX, I am not a giant fan of Musk himself as a human being. That all said, that organization that Shotwell runs is an amazing organization. I think that Starship is going to fundamentally change the world, and we've only just scratched the surface of it. And if you think that they have, if you factor in that they have a 97, 98, 99% success rate on their current rocket, that's pretty amazing. But then when he posted, there's a post that he made, maybe it was about a year and a half ago, where he says that they're going to launch 3 flights a day. You're talking about fleet. They're going to launch 3 flights a day, 100 tons per flight. That means you can build the International Space Station in a weekend. That's the same amount of mass as the International Space Station in a weekend. That changes everything, and that's not even counting the down here on the ground stuff, there's changes happening on policy and governance all over the world as a result of this reusable electricity.
Michael, did you know Cindy says that your sound is super quiet compared with?
I did. I saw that, Cindy. I appreciate your comments. I got another one from Laura. I'm guessing it has to do with you're on your phone. So you're the first person that's done an interview with us on a phone, and I'm wondering if that's the core problem.
Let's do a little experiment here. I'm going to turn my volume up on the speakerphone. Well, no, that wouldn't make any difference. Yeah, or would it? Actually, it would, maybe. So here's a test. Michael, can you say something?
Sure, I can say sure.
That's not going to work. Okay, it was a try. What? I can't hear you at all now.
Yes, you can't hear. What I said was you can't hear. Okay, we're not going to try to troubleshoot this. Let's just keep going with the conversation. We'll try to fix it in post, right? Okay. Sorry, folks. This is what you get when you go live. This is now our 12th, maybe our 13th. I think our 13th show. And this is the first time somebody's done it on a cell phone. So my hunch is that might be the core problem. But as long as I can hear Dr. Plata, I'm not going to worry too much because we're capturing the sound on my side raw. So when we build this into the podcast, it will have better sound quality. I'm pretty sure.
Let me just say that I don't think I'm naive about the challenges of Starship. I don't assume full development of Starship, but I'm also not cynical or skeptical, unreasonably skeptical. I think I'm a physician. I think of things statistically. I think of things in terms of probability, not philosophically. Absolutely, things are going to happen, or absolutely, it's not. What is the probability? Try to be accurate. And so, Michael, I'd like you and the listeners, if you would, to go to a web page. This is one of my web pages, and it would be developspace.info/levels, and that's all lowercase. Michael, let me know when you get there. Okay, I can't hear you, but I'll trust you. So these show the levels of development of Starship, with the easiest level first and the most difficult level being level 6. Okay, and so the question is, what are the odds that each level of development is going to succeed? And then at each level of success, what would be the impact? Okay, what I would say is even the minimum level of development of the Starship to orbit would be, I think, one of the easiest things to achieve. Level 2, I think, is highly likely, and that is recovery of the booster, and it's likely because they are already doing that with Falcon 9. Okay, what are the impacts of just getting the upper stage to orbit with a reasonable amount of payload? The implication is that you now have a non-reusable system, a super heavy lift vehicle that's non-reusable, yet is dramatically lower cost than SLS. And if you launch crew up to orbit in a Dragon and transfer them in LEO over to the lunar Starship in low Earth orbit, then basically you have nearly the capability of doing the Artemis missions. Okay? If you get to level 3, which I believe is fairly likely, and that is docking is no problem. We've docked without, the United States has docked without problem for 40 plus years, probably 45 years. And transferring of fuel, cryogenic fuel in LEO I believe that is not a particular technical challenge, and the reason I do that is based upon my interview with a leading researcher or leading engineer at United Launch Alliance who has himself done a lot of work on that, and he says they can transfer cryogenic propellant in laboratory settings. We are, and we have been for quite a few years, transferring non-cryogenic propellant in low Earth orbit at the International Space Station. And so you combine those two, he says, do it, just to prove that it can be done. So I believe that is fairly likely. When you do that, now you have the capability of pushing significantly more payload on translunar injection or trans-Mars injection than what the SLS system can do, even the Block 2. And so I think levels 1 to 3 is fairly likely, and with that, you've got a very inexpensive Earth, Moon, and Earth, Mars transportation system, and I'll explain that. Level 4, landing on the Moon, is also fairly likely, and remember, SpaceX doesn't get just one chance at doing it. They have a fleet. They can attempt it numerous times, and just like with the Falcon 9, they needed multiple chance at landing, but eventually they got it, and then they have perfected it to where they're just not having landing failures to speak of. The most challenging part, as I see, is deals with re-entry, and this has to deal with very high speeds, hitting the atmosphere with very high heat load in a relatively short amount of time on both the Earth and Mars. We have seen they've had challenges with the tiles, and so I would say that this is probably the biggest challenges, level 5 and level 6. And my point is that even if they don't ever achieve reentry to Earth, that nonetheless it is a remarkable capability, unlike anything that we've ever seen, and at a price which is far less than what we would ever expect from the government. And we have large payload or large number of people being able to go to the Moon at a minimum. You basically are having the capability of doing settlement in a short period of time because of the large number of people and large amount of payload that you can deliver.
So I'm going to take a step further. If SpaceX evaporated tomorrow afternoon, the ripple effects that have happened already as a result of SpaceX, they've, engineers that have left that company have now started, I think the number is 44 funded substantial companies. They're already talking about the SpaceX mafia the way they talked about the PayPal mafia. That the folks that have left that organization to go on to do other things are already having spillover effects. And then you start looking at all the other companies. There's, I believe, 8 reusable rocketry companies here in the United States. China is working on one. It didn't work recently. Their first attempt didn't work, but they are working on some reusable rocketry. They've already announced a system that is 50% larger than Starship. It's 150 tons. Now, yes, it's probably years away from flying, but they're putting their effort into it. India, Europe, they are working on their own reusable rocketry programs. So even if SpaceX does not achieve levels 1 or 2 or 3, there are plenty of other organizations that are working on their own version of this. So what I'm saying is it's more than just Starship. Starship is the thing that we can point to, but it's so much bigger than that. And it's not just space, it's going to be, our own down here on the ground results as well. there are political ramifications, financial ramifications, transport, logistics, they're all going to transform with this reusable rocketry. And SpaceX might be carrying the flag right now. They might be the poster child right now. And I think they will be. I think they're pretty far ahead, and I think it's going to be really hard to catch up. But there are plenty of organizations that are copying, iterating on this proven capability. And SpaceX is not going to be the only game in town very much longer. These levels are going to happen whether it's SpaceX or not.
Well, I would agree, but I'm going to really emphasize Starship for the following reasons. Number one, God forbid, but this could happen if Elon were to be assassinated or otherwise die. SpaceX has already, I think, won the argument in that people are taking very seriously, because of SpaceX and Starship, people are taking very seriously the possibility that a super heavy vehicle, possibly fully reusable, is actually possible. And even, I would say, the idea of a permanent base on the moon and Mars, I feel as though the progress that SpaceX has made has gotten rid of that giggle factor, you know? So even if he were to die, we don't know what his, what do you call it, legacy plan is. In other words, will SpaceX continue if Elon dies? I think that the vision is sufficiently clear. I think people within SpaceX would, and the investors, remember that's privately held, and it's majority of it is, I believe, held by Elon. So long as he has made the steps to ensure that it doesn't go to a sister who kills the program, okay, or something, you know, like happened with what's that really big plane?
That's exactly what happened with the Fallout Australia launch.
Yeah, so long. Yeah, so long as Elon is smarter than that, you know, if he learns from that, then if he dies and if SpaceX just continues with Gwynne Shotwell, you know, at the lead, I believe the vision is clear enough. I think the workers are going to be absolutely committed to Elon's vision, even if he were to pass away. Also, Starlink really is providing the revenue for settlement now, in specifically settlement of Mars. And so I don't think that there is going to be a shortage of funding necessarily to get over the hump to be able to reach these at least minimum levels of Starship development. So frankly, you can look at the industry that has been inspired and is pursuing, but as long as Elon is alive, I think SpaceX is going to be a hard leader to catch. And if he dies, I think SpaceX is going to be a hard leader to catch.
Well, and to compare that, or to contrast that with Blue Origin, they are entirely dependent on Bezos's capital. They have some contracts, but SpaceX was able to capture contracts early on. So Blue is not as well insulated if something were to happen to Bezos, right? And
yeah.
They don't have the revenues, they don't have the federal contracts, they don't have the relationships necessary. They're not as well protected financially if something were to happen to their funding source. So I want to just say for the record, I hope both of those gentlemen are in great shape and they stay in great health for a very long time. I think the world does not appreciate like how much value they are bringing to the world.
So let me just say, we have enough engines for a Starship. I think when the Earth-Mars window opens in 2024, I think SpaceX should be able to send a dozen, let's say, Starships on a trajectory to Mars. And the cool thing is if you space them out with like a day between entry into Mars atmosphere, you can get the telemetry and have time to go ahead and tweak the landing sequence so that your second one can have a shot at doing it with adjustments, and then the third one with adjustments, and fourth with adjustments. So just like they needed, I don't know, 5 or 6, something like that, Falcon 9 landing attempts before they nailed it. If they need 5 or 6 landings on Mars before they nail it, then they could do it in 2024, most likely. If it's a problem with the hardware, well, 2026 gives them time to adjust the hardware, and then they launch another fleet based on the telemetry of the crashes in 2024, and they have another multi-opportunity to nail the landing on Mars. So when Elon, and if they figure it out in 2024 or 2026, then I think that they will have multiple starships that will have successfully landed with a horrendous amount of payload. So then the question is, in 2029, knowing how to successfully land and having a great amount of payload on the surface, would they take the risk of putting people into the craft in 2029? And I think the answer is probably yes, if they've had multiple success.
By the way, minor change, but can you hear me through the computer now?
Yes, I can.
Fantastic. I'm going to turn off the phone, and hopefully that has changed. If I could get some comments from the audience, if that's is better for sound. Yeah, so is that better? Great. Okay.
I think
yeah, that was kind of insane. That was a user error. So that was that. Thank you. Yep, getting echo, but I think we should be good now. Could I get one more comment? I think we're good on my side. And Doug, you can hear me 5 by 5, loud and clear.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Sorry for the headache, folks. That was actually a user error on my side. I don't exactly know what was different, but I was messing with the audio settings. Great, fantastic. Thank you, Rachel. Appreciate that. Okay, we should be good. I'm sure hoping we didn't mess up the audio here. All right. So, okay. So you think we're going to give me that year again, 2040? You think we're going to have, so you said launch in 2029, and you sent me a message earlier about what you think 2040 might look like.
Landing attempts in 2024 and 2020. Humans on the surface, moderate of getting humans on the surface in 2029. If not 2029, highly likely 31 or 33. Okay, that's Mars. Meanwhile, I think we're having starships landing on the moon in high numbers. I think the atmosphere is more of a challenge than just landing in a vacuum on the moon. You know, that's just a matter of propellant. Mars, you have all sorts of aerodynamics going on. And so if you have, let's say 3031 or 2031, in which we're having humans land, by that time, that is what, 9 years from now, they will have thousands of Raptor 2 engines that have been produced.
Right.
They're well on their way to developing the fleet of 1,000 that Elon is aiming for, because they have the factory in place, and they just need to ramp up and get the efficiency in the production of the engines and the Starship bodies. And I think they can do the Starship bodies, I don't know, easier than engines, possibly so. Okay. So I honestly think in the early 2030s, we are going to have hundreds of starships and going up to 1,000. I think that's reasonable. I don't think that's crazy talk. Okay. So if you have thousands, if you have hundreds to 1,000 starships that can go every 2 years, and you have all sorts of flight experience by launching Starlinks and who knows what else, okay? I don't see how we can look at 2040 and say, oh, we'll have 100 people on Mars.
Right.
I mean, what are you doing with all the starships if you're not sending cargo and crew to the moon and to Mars?
Dr. Musk was, Dr. Zubrin was talking about 2 weeks ago that there could be so much excess capacity that launch might be $50,000 per trip, right? And that people will sell their homes, they'll move, they'll emigrate on $50,000, right?
But even if it's $500,000, that is something that a person in a wealthy country could save up and sell their home here, buy the ticket, and go and pay for you not only have to pay for the ticket, you have to pay for the habitat.
Right.
You have to prepay life support for the rest of your life. They're not gonna let you go if you can't pay for life support.
Right.
So what I'm saying is, like, what is NASA's policy on Mars right now? Oh, we're gonna have the gateway, and we're gonna have mid 2040s, and this is why I'm saying Starship just current NASA policy irrelevant.
I'm going to read the text that you sent me earlier, and I'm just going to quote it, and I want to dig into it. And by the way, we only have 15 minutes left, so I want to get into Instabase. So don't spend too much time on this topic.
Right.
Point number 4. You actually have 5 points. We've talked about a few of them, but I really want to dig into this number 4 here. Point number 4. This is your text to me earlier today. Current American space policy will be overcome by events and hence will be understood as irrelevant, and within about 3 years will be completely overturned as the decision makers in DC are forced to make policy changes if NASA is to remain relevant. So them's fighting words for a bunch of people.
Absolutely.
So I'm about 90% with you. I don't think irrelevant is the word I would use, but I definitely think there's going to have to be some big changes. So defend it.
Okay. Look, if SpaceX, okay, there's level of development. Okay, so if SpaceX in 10 years, if they have 100 or 500 starships and they've successfully landed on the moon, if not Mars, okay. If NASA doesn't come on board, if the decision makers in DC don't say, hey, NASA, forget Artemis 9, 10, 11 with now eight NASA astronauts,
Right, yeah.
And we're going to have some sort of SLS-based transport to Mars, if they don't give up on it and say, we got to do a public-private partnership with SpaceX and take advantage of this capability, they do risk their relevance. If they insist on the current policy, it's going to be irrelevant. I'm sorry.
I don't have a lot of confidence in the full Artemis program, right? I think Artemis was necessary to get started. I think things like the Artemis Accords are necessary. They're super important.
Mike,
for
I
everybody.
can't hear you. I may have to log back on.
Okay. Okay, well, that was interesting. I don't know what just happened. Nothing changed on my side, so I don't know what that was about. Are you still? Can you hear me? Nope. I have nothing from you. Nope. You can hear me. Okay, good. I'm getting a network problem. You are connected at 0 out of 10. Close down your connection and try again. Yeah. Well, while we're trying to figure that out, I want to point out another topic. Thank you. We're working on it. Appreciate that, Rachel. How's that?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Your connection went from 5 bars to 0. That it was a network problem.
Yeah. I think I apologize. I think it's the phone is what's doing it.
Yeah, no worries. We got you. Thanks, and everybody's like much better, so we're good. I really want to keep going on this topic, but I want to, the kind of the point of the Dare Greatly podcast is to talk about the money and policy and things like that. And I really agree with you that NASA is going to have to make some pretty big changes. Just the sheer budget numbers are going to have to shift. We are seeing that NASA is getting pretty solid support from the Congress. The Space Force is getting support. They just got another $500 million added to their budget. Space Force is getting a little bit more recognition on Capitol Hill, but I want to spend the next 10 minutes, because we only have a little bit more time, talking about your program, your organization. I want to talk about Instabase. So we need to kind of close out part of this conversation to get to the rest of it.
Okay, so I have started a new type of space advocacy organization. First of all, it is free to join. It's called the Space Development Network, and I think the name is pretty self-explanatory. It is free to join because I want it to be an organization that has no barriers to participation. It's projects oriented, and it is for anybody who considers themselves to be a space advocate, whether low level or high level. And what it is we've been given certain talents, we have certain skills, and this is a way to network together with other space advocates, and you contribute your volunteer what you are able to, whether low level or high level. So that's the Space Development Network. What we have done, we have about 150 members right now. What we have done is we organize ourselves into working groups based on interest and skills. And so, for example, one of our most active ones has been the agriculture working group. And we had people join in on that Zoom teleconference. And we have come up with a basically consensus plan for agriculture, and we have that on the webpage, developspace.info/consensus, all lowercase. And that describes how we've gone through, we figured out what lighting approach, what radiation shielding approach, what sizes of the greenhabs. And very, very interestingly, we started hydroponically, but we decided to make our own soil, crushing rocks, so you don't have to deal with the problems of regolith on the moon and on Mars. We just keep regolith out of the habitats entirely. But by crushing rock, you have the matrix there, and then build up organic material over time. We actually make good soil because plants do better in soil. The microbes in the roots do better if you have soil. That's an example. LED lighting and radiation. It's really interesting comparing Moon and Mars greenhabs in terms of radiation shielding for the workers, because on Mars you have the potential of using natural sunlight, but then what about the radiation protection for the workers? So you can read the consensus plan. But this is the Space Development Network. Now, my hope is that in the next 2 to 3 months, the Space Development Network, in terms of membership, is going to grow dramatically, and that is because we are focused on Boca Chica and the initial orbital launch attempt of Starship. If the 2018 Falcon Heavy launch is any indication, I would expect that there'll be about 100,000 space interested public going to Boca Chica to watch this most remarkable event, especially if they do the attempted landing on the ocean and hovering, and if they have stability to horizontally translate and to be caught in the arms of the Mechazilla. That is going to be like unbelievable.
That'll be amazing, right?
Who wouldn't want to be there to see this, you know? So what we've done in the Space Development Network, this is a major project. We have constructed out of sheet plastic a full-size mock-up of an inflatable lunar or Martian base, which we call the InstaBase. Michael, can you go to developspace.info/instabase and show the picture? This is an artist rendering of our concept of fully inflatable habitat base, inflatable base for an initial permanent crew of 8. That could be a very historic crew, okay? And if you scroll down, you'll see a picture of the actual mock-up that we have created. Yeah, there it is. So we are going to go ahead and display that. We've got currently got permission from Rocket Ranch down there to display it on their property. And it's not going to be just the mock-up that will display, but we also are developing a number of displays to turn it into a space fair where people can come, and there'll be signs describing different aspects of space development. There will be, you know, mock-up of a dexterous telerobot and all sorts of rocket families and Regulus simulant and all these sorts of things. Significant launch by significant launch, we'll keep displaying this again and again, building up the sort of the professionalism of the space fair. And we want to be able to sign up large numbers of people to the Space Development Network at these events. I'm hoping to be able to get at least one of these YouTubers, these space YouTubers. They have anywhere from like 250, 90,000 viewers all the way up to like 1.6 million subscribers. If we can get it, have them come and tour the space fair and expose it to all those people, I think that's really going to help with our exposing this. But that is our first step. We actually want to take it up a level, more professional level. It's going to cost more money, about $70,000 to remake the InstaBase out of vinyl by paying the children's bounce house companies to do it professionally, something more durable. And then even looking further, we would like to actually get property and establish a Moon Mars analog base that would not be exploration oriented, but would be development and settlement oriented, and actually be able to go as professional as possible, even professional engineers that are working to really develop the InstaBase as a high level simulation of what could be launched to the surface of the Moon and Mars.
That is fantastic. That's going to be so great. You don't have a date for when the InstaBase is going to be operational down in Boca Chica yet, do you?
The display,
yeah.
Or well, it's whenever the Starship launches. I'm guessing 2 to 3 months from now, but I've been saying that for the last 12 months.
Yeah, you know, the FAA through the EPA has put a bit of a lock on that. So,
but then there's also the, you know, they haven't done a full static fire test yet, so we'll see. One
step at a time. Okay. All right. With that, we do need to close down. I've posted a bunch of links. I do recommend, you know, if people are interested, get in touch with developspace.info. They've got a super extensive website. There's a ton of stuff there. And you know, as Doug said earlier, it's free to join. So if this is something you're interested in, I think the InstaBase is a pretty neat idea as a public outreach tool. If you learn nothing and you still have a public outreach tool, it's well worth the effort. And then if you learn something, even better. So I'm excited about that. I think that's really, really cool. Okay, with that, we're going to close down here in a minute. I want to let everybody know we've got some holiday scheduled programs. So Monday we're not going to be here next week for the holiday of Christmas. Same story with the day after New Year's. But we do have a special program. Leah's putting together basically a year in review. I'm really excited about that, to see what she's able to do with that. And for those folks that were here on Monday, I had an emergency root canal and a crown, and so that's why we were not programming on Monday. So we've got a great year coming up. I have so many terrific guests. We have so many great guests coming. I'm very excited about that. We're going to showcase that in the new website. And we'll be posting our podcasts. We're going to put a whole bunch of podcasts up on the show, on the site, in the next couple, 6 or 8 days or so. So, all right, stick with us. Thanks very much, Doug. Dr. Plata, really appreciate having you here. Fascinating stuff. I'm really looking forward. To what the next 6 months look like, because I think 2023 it's going to open some people's eyes. So looking forward to seeing what happens next with you.
Take care.
Thanks a lot. Good night. Bye-bye.